I'm an industrial maintenance mechanic. I'm highly sensitive to building noises, in addition to being highly sensitive to weird shit, spirit activity. I worked in an old foundry once. It was converted to a fabrication shop and had a lot of small automated assembly machines. I could tell if one of those 40-something machines was not operating from 100 feet away. I could also hear things like pencils or pens falling off of desks in areas where I knew nobody was working. There was one stock/inventory area that I could always catch a shadow of someone in my peripheral vision walking around. I did discover from some older employees that years ago that area used to be occupied by a guy who did all of the company's quality control inspections. The guy was a company man, worked damn near from sunup to well after sundown. He died rather quickly and unexpectedly, and it was found that the guy was riddled with cancer that spread from his pancreas. I don't think he ever left his job. During that job, I was renting an old Victorian house that also had some crazy activity. From seeing random plumes of smoke in my peripheral vision, as if someone just exhaled after taking a big drag from a cigarette, to door handles rattling really badly and objects being moved. Coincidentally, a shiny Zippo lighter was the main one. I occasionally had dreams of these two old ladies in old school dresses that would constantly be walking around, frantically going in and out of various rooms. They would grab the door handles, try to open them, but they were locked, then try to find the keys to open them. I was convinced this had to have something to do with the door handles always rattling. I had a Zippo lighter that my wife had given me that I liked to set on top of our TV. Well, on more than one occasion, it liked to fly off the TV as if someone smacked it. It didn't just fall over and to the floor. It would go 6 to 8 feet horizontally, then go to the floor. One night, my wife called me, flipping out because the lighter flew at her from the TV, again almost 8 feet away. I kept the lighter in my car after that. One night, I was working on my computer. My dog was on the floor next to me sleeping. He's a small Jack Russell mix. I suddenly got this cold draft that gave me that hair-raising on the back of your neck feeling, and a second after that, I hear this absolutely unearthly, guttural growl, like bowels of hell, dragon/demonic type growl behind me, and it like reverberated through the whole room and my spine. I freeze, but am looking down at my keyboard. I notice the dog is wide awake, backed against my desk, hackles raised, baring its teeth, and attention fixed squarely on something behind me. That noise definitely did not come from that dog. I carefully picked him up, waited a moment, and quickly darted out of the house for the night. Luckily, my wife was at work. I tried to put two and two together, like what the hell was all of this shit in the house? I had a weird sense that maybe at some point there was a fire in the house. Dreams of old ladies frantically running around, seeing plumes of smoke, something obviously interested in my lighter, and so I decided to poke around. There was a small hatch to access the attic. I peeked up there. There was something odd. The rafters and trusses were like charred black and reinforced with newer lumber. Newer in the sense of it was probably 75 years old versus the 130-year-old burned beams. I was outside smoking a cigarette one day when my landlord's son, my landlord was literally 99 years old, came by to mow the lawn. I got to talking to him, and he said I reminded him of a tenant that lived in the house when he was a kid. He said this guy loved to smoke cigars, would sit out on the enclosed porch, and plumes of smoke would just bellow out the windows. I then asked him if there were ever two old ladies that lived there, or if there was ever a fire in the house. He had a look of disbelief. Yes, my parents bought the house from two twin sisters who grew up in the house. They had at one time had a fire that pretty much burned the roof off. Nobody could figure out what caused it. The only question I couldn't figure out then and never did was what the fuck that guttural demon sound was. Maybe that caused the fire? Maybe someone was telling me don't leave stuff like the lighter around, though that could have been the cigar guy. I don't know. I work in a century-old industrial building. I live there too, in fact. Like most old buildings, it has its quirks. Sound travels strangely, pipes rattle, etc. I've been there over 6 years, so I think of myself being very familiar with these quirks, but there have been things I can't explain. There are spirits there, no doubt in my mind. Many of us have experienced things. Shadows, whispers, and most frequently, footsteps. Nothing threatening, but there's definitely something there. Besides footsteps a week ago, not much has happened, but today, on a windy and rainy day that can only be a Minnesotan spring, something weird happened. The store was dead, so I was clearing some space in the back. Suddenly, I heard a hiss. A loud, high-pitched, guttural hiss. It came from an area about 15 feet away from me. Here's where I don't know if I'll make sense, but I know the sounds the building makes. This wasn't one of them. And before I even registered hearing the hiss, every hair on my body stood on end. I was terrified before I even knew what I was terrified about. I stood there staring at the place where I thought I heard it come from, but nothing else happened. All I know is that it was loud, it was harsh, and I don't want to hear it again. Some backstory. My mom's side has always been connected with the afterlife. My grandma can see the shadows and my mom can feel them. I can see and sometimes talk to them. I started seeing them when I was 9, and it really bothered me then, but I grew up to just accept them. My mom and my cousin are the only ones who believe me, but there is a spirit in almost every room in this house, and I never speak to them, but they know I can see them. We got this house 6 years ago, and it's a very old house. We have 4 rooms in our basement and 1 closet. In my sister's room, there's a woman in her closet that always tried to taunt me when I was a kid. There's an old man in my room. There's a little girl in the closet under the stairs. The old man has never said anything to me, but he has always responded by shaking his head and pulling down his hat. But the little girl, she only talks when my mom comes down by always yelling her name. My mom always thought it was me, so she'd come to my room, and I'd always be confused because I didn't call her name. I didn't even say a word. I didn't believe that she was actually calling her name until I heard a little girl's voice call my name. It was always just name-calling for 3 years, but one day I was all alone, and I heard the closet door open and shut, then the laundry door open and shut, then open and shut, and then running upstairs. I knew I was the only one home, and I knew no one could be hiding in the closet because there's black widows in there, and everyone in this house is scared of spiders. I went out and looked in the laundry room and saw the light was on. I turned it off and went back to my room. Then I heard someone coming downstairs and going back to the closet. I didn't get off my bed. I then heard the closet door open but not close, and the laundry door open but not close, so I waited a while before I went out. The light was on again, and the closet door was open. I closed the door and turned off the light and went upstairs to check if anyone was home. No one was home. When my mom got off work, I told her what happened, so now we keep a chair in front of the closet door so the ghost can't come out, and we've never had a problem again. Okay, so before I begin, I want to clarify I was around 10 and was being rushed back to the truck after hunting. When I was younger, I absolutely hated hunting. I hated the woods, and I was always terrified of going to the deer lease. It was a few hours of sitting in the stand, or whatever it's called. Night had just come, and we were making our way out and to the truck with my dad and brother. When we were on the road walking to the truck, I looked to my right at the tree line, and I see this absolutely massive white wolf. It looked to be bigger than me and on all fours. It had thick fur and was doing the thing dogs do to dry off, like shaking its fur. I don't know what it's called, though it made no sound. I couldn't really distinguish features on it. I was paralyzed with fear and just ran to catch up with my dad and brother. I never said a single word about it. I'm 20 now, and I still think about it to this day. I have absolutely no idea what I saw, and I'm still unable to find any answers. Could anyone provide me with literally any explanation? Could it have been the 10-year-old me just conjuring something up, being already scared? I'm new to Reddit, and I'm sorry. I had trouble really explaining this. I just want answers. Thanks. I believe I've had 2 visits from Death, aka the Grim Reaper. My first experience was when I was 15 years old. I was laying in my bed, my head facing my closet. As I lay there, I see a very tall figure in my small closet, 7-foot-ish, dressed in a long black leather trench coat and a black fisherman-style hat. His face and hand were in a dark shadow, so no facial features. I froze with fear, but I got this sense of this being saying it was okay and he wasn't there for me. About 4 months later, my stepdad died in his sleep, and I was the one to find him. It was like death was warning me I was going to find a dead body. The second time was 2021. I worked in a care home, and yes, death was something that did happen often since I took care of older people. However, I never had to deal with anyone passing on me. One night I'm working, and time slowed down to a standstill. The place was so quiet I couldn't even hear the clocks ticking. At the end of the hall, I saw a shadow, and it then walked into one of the rooms. All I could think was, what the fuck is going on right now? 2 weeks after this event, I go to give my resident a medication, and I found her dead. Yet again, death was letting me know I was going to find someone. I don't know why, but he apparently has to let me know. I now make sure I pay attention to things like this. My mom was 16 when she lived in this house. It's a big house and would be considered where rich people live now. My uncle lived in the attic, and he would be woken up every night at 2 a.m. to his bed being shaked. Their dog would never go upstairs to the attic, but he would always bark up the stairs like he was scared of something up there. My mom has had a couple experiences where one was physical touch. Her first experience with this ghost was when she wanted to sleep with her sister, but she didn't let her, so she just slept outside her door in the hallway. She got woken up to a big kick to her back. She looked and saw no one was there, and she was in too much pain from that, so she just laid there and tried to go back to sleep. She got woken up again, but it was to a kick in the head. In the morning, she asked her sister why she kicked her, and she denied ever doing that. Her brothers denied ever doing it too. Her second was when she was having a sleepover with her friend and her sister. They slept in the front room. My mom slept on the couch. Her friend and sister slept on a blow-up mattress. She had a hard time sleeping, but she was trying. She opened her eyes just from frustration of not being able to sleep, and she saw a woman standing by the front door just staring at her. She freaked out and covered herself with the blanket. She didn't get out for what she said felt like hours. When she finally got the courage to look out, she saw the woman standing over her, just staring down at her. She didn't sleep at all that night and was so scared to look over the covers again. When it was morning time, my grandma grabbed her blanket to try and wake her up, and she saw she was already awake by my mom screaming. She told her everything that happened, and she slept with my grandma for a month after that. I don't know what to make of this one, but earlier in the week, after I woke up from a strange dream, I looked around the room, and there was an absurdly dark shadow in the corner of my ceiling that was way too dark for the conditions compared to any other place in my room. It looked as though there might have been a water stain on the ceiling or something like that, which would look even darker with the lights off compared to the regular amount of darkness that should have been there. But when I used my phone's screen to illuminate the corner and see what it was nothing. The coloration on the ceiling and wall around there was normal and uniform with everything else in the room, and when I turned my screen brightness back down, the dark shadow reappeared. To back up a bit, I also wrote about the dream I was having. It was a strange existential dream about virtual reality and a hallway-like environment as the transitory space between worlds or games or whatever. So I woke up and was a bit startled at just how utterly dark this corner of my room was. It was pitch black just in that corner, but nowhere else in the whole room was nearly so dark. I've lived in this house for a year and never noticed this dark corner before. I was staring at it for some time and illuminated it with my phone screen twice. I didn't want to wake my partner, and saw nothing to account for it. Now, I'm as skeptical as anyone about not jumping to any conclusions on this, so I decided I would start paying attention to that corner over the following nights. Maybe it was always this dark. Maybe it was an optical illusion of sorts, like the illusion of a checkerboard pattern and a white square in a shadow that looks darker than a dark square not in a shadow, but they were the same color. The dark shadow was there again on the second night, but then it was gone on the third, fourth, and fifth nights. Every night since, I looked at the same corner, and the darkness of that corner was uniform and consistent with the whole rest of the room, without this extra dark thing there. For some visual aids, here's a picture I took of that corner this afternoon, and I made a sort of mock-up of the shape and darkness of the shadow there. My phone doesn't have a good nighttime camera, so I wasn't going to even attempt taking a picture of it while it was happening. It would have just come out dark and grainy, and when I lit up the corner with my phone, there was nothing at all in that shape that would account for the sudden sharp darkness that was there. The shadow had a very sharp edge to it. It didn't gradually fade into blackness. There was the normal brightness of the walls and ceiling, then a harsh line into a deep, dark void, kind of triangular or diamond-y shaped, in the corner. Growing up in the 90s, I was exposed to a fair amount of aliens in the media. Movies and TV like Independence Day, Men in Black, Mars Attacks, E.T., X-Files, Invader Zim, Alf, Third Rock from the Sun, etc. I can't remember anyone in my family ever taking any sort of particular interest in aliens, but they were always sort of around. I don't know if this media is why, or maybe it was my parents' open attitude towards the subject, but I never questioned the existence of aliens. I knew stories about people being abducted and crop circles, but I didn't feel like it presented any sort of immediate danger. I never considered myself to be afraid of them, until my mom started asking me about it one morning, that is. I've always been a sleep talker, well, more a sleep mumbler, but when I was 9 or 10, I started sleepwalking as well. My parents would find me in the living room or the hallway trying to incoherently accomplish something. Most of the time, they could just guide me back to bed without incident. On one occasion, though, it wasn't so simple. When my mom came to check on me before she went to sleep, she saw I wasn't in my bed. She came into the room to look for me and noticed a small figure crouched in the closet. She asked me what I was doing and came closer to help me back to bed. As she started to approach, I guess I started crying, mumbling about aliens, and peeing on the floor. She was shocked and called for my dad to come help her. When he arrived, he tried to pick me up to comfort me, but I started screaming and hit him in the face, something I had never done before and haven't done again since. They had to let me cry myself out, mumbling, "The aliens," and "Don't take me again," over and over until I would let them help me. My mom says she doesn't think I ever really woke up because I didn't say anything as she changed my pajamas and tucked me back in. The next morning, when she asked me if I had a dream about aliens, I didn't know what she was talking about. I had no recollection of anything that had happened the night before. She asked if being abducted by aliens was something I worried about often, and I honestly told her it wasn't. My parents never made a big deal about the occurrence. They just wanted to make sure that I was all right, but I was pretty embarrassed. Since I had no memory of the event, I wasn't left with any fear of aliens while I was awake, but I was left with a burning curiosity as to whether they would be back. Anybody else have an experience similar to this? This happened springtime, circa 2008, in a rural area, northeast U.S., around 3 to 5 p.m. I was home alone in my bedroom. Both of the windows had a view of the backyard and the woods. I don't remember if the blinds were open already, but for whatever reason, I looked out the window. I saw a white figure gracefully drifting, floating, flying in the air at the treetops. These are fully grown trees, and lots of them. The figure didn't take a specific form. It looked like a stark white bedsheet, very stereotypical bedsheet ghost shape. Except it didn't move like trash in the wind. It wasn't a windy day. Its movements were slow, precise, and heading in one direction. It was quite large, but not huge. I could see the shape of some kind of head under the white sheet, guiding or leading it wherever it was floating or drifting or flying towards. I was absolutely terrified. I stopped looking and shut the blinds. I froze for several minutes. I remember thinking if I moved, it would sense my presence. Several minutes passed before I could move. I never saw it again. There wasn't anything similar to it caught in the trees or fallen down anywhere. I'd have assumed it was trash, but it simply didn't move like a big piece of plastic or a bedsheet caught in the wind. It was too high up and gentle or graceful, heading in one specific direction. Has anyone seen anything similar? Incident 1, 2017. When I was about 10 years old, I moved to a new town where I still live today. My family bought an old house that was built in 1812. One night when my stepdad was at work, the power went out, so me, my mom, and my sister all slept in the same room together, my room, and I woke up randomly in the middle of the night, and there was a large man in all black standing over my bedside, and he said something to me in a deep voice. I can't recall exactly what he said because it was 5 to 6 years ago, but it still scares me to this day, and I don't know who the man was since there were no men in the house besides me. Incident 2, 2019. The second encounter with the man was on a walk home at night after playing a Ouija board with my friend. We asked the board if there was a spirit with us, and it responded yes. We asked the spirit if it wishes to cause either of us harm, and it said yes. We asked if it wants to hurt me, and it said yes. I got scared, and we put it away, and I went home. On the way home, I was paranoid, and I kept checking behind me because I felt like someone was following me. When I finally got back to my house, I saw the large black man standing between My house and the neighbor's fence. I ran inside as fast as I could and locked the door, and I haven't seen him since. Now, 2022. The last time I saw the man was 2 to 3 years ago, and I don't hang out with the friend who has the Ouija board anymore. I still live in the same house and in the same bedroom. Earlier this year, I went to go walk nearby to a restaurant to get some food. The restaurant was about 10 minutes away. I ordered my food and grabbed it. When I was heading back to my house, I had to pass through this overgrown tree that has leaves which are 2 meters above the ground. When I was passing through it, there was this little creature that popped up in front of me. It was fully yellow and looked like it was hovering on 2 legs. I know what you guys might be thinking. It was a moth or other insect. It was not, because this thing had tiny arms, human-like legs, human-like nose, eyes, and ears, and wings. The creature then flew away as soon as it saw me, and it was very quick. I even searched up if there was any insect species in my area that matched the description of what I saw, and there was nothing that came up. That is what I experienced a few months back. Could anyone help me to find out what it was? Hello, little Vickies. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard and you haven't subscribed already, please do, and hit the like button, as they're both very helpful to my growth here on YouTube. If you have a suggestion or simply want to say hello, please leave a comment below. If you have a story of your own you'd like to share and possibly have read on the channel, send it to me at veronica45stories@gmail.com. Link is also in the description, as are other ways to support the channel if you feel so inclined. I post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday by 5 p.m. Pacific. Thanks again for being here. I appreciate it beyond measure. And until next time, be good.